Founded in 1991 by patients, the FSHD Society is the largest grassroots network of FSHD patients, their families, and research activists. The FSHD Society offers a community of support, news, and information for the millions of people affected by FSHD worldwide. This is FSHD Society Radio. Welcome to the FSHD Society Radio Show. Thanks for being here on yet another episode as we're kind of finishing out the year. It is the December episode of our, community kind of connections where we bring in people that have FSHD or maybe caregivers that are directly involved. We kind of shift away from not necessarily the science, but more the people. So welcome to the show today. Thanks for being here. If you've missed any past episodes, even in the Wayback Machine, way back early on, they're all available for you where you find your podcasts. For me, I go to Spotify. You can find them there. Also, check out fshdsociety.org for all our connections within the science world. If you want to see the latest and greatest what's going on, as well as our community events. That community calendar is huge. To click on that, there's so many groups that meet on a regular basis, if it's a chapter or if it's early onset and so forth. A lot of tools, a lot of resources there for you, all in one spot. Visit fshdsociety.org. Today, I have a great guest on, and I can predict this because I have met this man and talked a little bit on one of my favorite places to talk to people, and that's on a baseball field. This is where we originally met. And then, hence, of course, I thought, man, this guy would be a fun guest to bring on. He is in my neck of the woods, believe it or not. He braves the Wisconsin weathers on a regular basis, winters and whatnot. It is Michael Osborne. Thank you, Michael, for being here and being a part of the show.
Good to be here, Tim. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. I was excited about this from the point where a good friend of mine told me of you, and that good friend is Jeff Ohm. I don't mind plugging his name either. And I'm in business with him, and I grew up with Jeff, and he said to me before a baseball game, literally I think hours before, hey, in a text, I think one of the assistant coaches we're playing against has what you have. And then he just drops that. Like, what? What do you mean? How is that possible? And that's kind of where it started. And then, of course, it was at a really cool venue, Franklin Field, where our independent professional league baseball plays, the Milkmen and stuff. And that's always fun for the kids and so forth. But I don't want to go too far down the road there. I just want to kind of lay the foundation of how we connected. So I guess the next step here is, tell people a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Who is Michael Osborne?
Well, it's just a normal guy, if you will, with FSHD. Born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Nice.
3 children, married 23 years, business owner. I'm an independent insurance agent, which I hope people don't shut off the podcast when they hear that.
Right there,
or try calling in with insurance questions due to the state of the industry right now. But just a normal guy that 4 years ago was almost 4 years to the month. It was December of 2019 when I was officially diagnosed. So yeah.
How old were you? I know this is going to be, maybe you don't want to say this. Some people are.
No.
How old
I was 44.
You were 44 when you were diagnosed. Okay. All right. So with the family life established at that point, so you're married 23 years. So, well into the married life. And as you said, like a normal guy. Right. So what kind of got you to that point of the diagnosis? If you had to kind of rewind and go, hey, what was like those first things you went, something's not right here.
Yeah, probably the first thing that I guess I noticed that was wrong. And with my sister working in the medical field, you always, obviously, even though she's a dietitian, you still tend to go to those people to say, hey, what do you think about this? And it actually was some of my stomach muscles that I think had weakened and dropped, and just obviously was not symmetrical with the other side of my body, and that was probably the first thing. But after visiting 4 doctors, they just said it was hereditary. And then, unfortunately, on my dominant, my right side, I started noticing things. I was a bowler, still try to, and I just noticed I couldn't hold the ball the way that I used to. Other things throughout my life I had issues with. I love driving my old 2003 Jeep, and it got more difficult to put the doors on and the top up and zip the windows. And and things. So I finally went and had a test done.
So I was a Jeep owner long ago. Loved it. One of my quests is to get it back at some point. Trying to lay that groundwork with my wife. I think she's in, but we're seeing. So yeah, and I can definitely relate, because I had the hard top, soft top combo with the kind I had, and then trying to put the hard top on was always difficult. And this is long before I was diagnosed with anything too. And like reaching up, right, to get that like zipper like around and things. So that was kind of a trigger for you, like, why is this tough to reach?
With baseball, I was still luckily able to throw. I just couldn't do it as much or as long as I had been able to before. For me, it was a dexterity. It was my forearms. It was my hands. That was really the biggest problem at the time.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned like your stomach muscles. So was it like just like kind of holding your core in certain positions and doing things?
Ironically, it wasn't even that. Even though I've never been a guy that works out. I mean, if I stood up and showed you my stature, like probably anyone else with this disease, I've kind of been a beanpole my entire life. But it wasn't that. It was just kind of noticing that my belly button was not centered, and the bulge on, and then obviously becoming middle-aged. It just the bulge on my left side became a little bit more protruding. And I've always had back issues and things like that. And obviously, if your core isn't strong, your back isn't going to be strong. So it just different things like that you just kind of notice.
Yeah. And I think for me, because I was diagnosed when I was 40, so not that much different. And yeah, those certain things that you just start to realize, wait a minute, what's going on? And you said you hit like 4 doctors in there. I think I was about the same too, at least in the progression from, primary doctor to an ortho. I don't know what this is, and so forth. And it didn't take long. I mean, for me, it only took like a couple quick visits, and maybe, between the appointment times and whatnot, we're looking at maybe just a couple months for me, but it was never like the path never deviated. It was always, no, I don't know. Let me send you here. And it steadily got me to the right person to kind of say, yep, I can see this visually as this. So for your story, was that similar? Was the first doctor your primary and so forth, or was it like this rambling, we have no idea what the heck this is?
Yeah, it was my primary at the time, and then I saw another doctor within their group, and then I was referred to a different primary who ended up becoming my new primary at the time. And yeah, everybody just kind of, and this was well before a lot of the weakness started happening in my back and my bicep and my hands and things like that. But it was just everyone's just said it was hereditary, and basically just kind of didn't follow up, didn't send me to a specialist, which I mean is what you want to hear. Yeah. And looking back at my dad's physique, who had FSH and didn't know it, it was just one of those things like, well, yeah, it is hereditary because that's how my dad looked.
Wow. So it was in the family line, and none of you knew it.
It was in the family line. None of us knew it. And unfortunately, I was diagnosed again in 2019. My dad passed in 2016, my mom in 2018. So at the time that I actually got the diagnosis, I really didn't have anyone to talk to about my dad's past experience, except for what I remember as a child and as a young adult. But things that you don't really notice, because that was my dad. He had it early onset. He could never raise his arms above his head. And they just always said it was winging of the scapula. That's all it was called.
Wow. So
it was never attached to anything else.
Never attached to anything else. This is just something that it just didn't work for him. They didn't give it a reason. And so his life went on and worked through those limitations and whatnot. Right.
Correct.
Yep. That is fascinating. Right. I mean, we've heard that a little bit repeated over time, where early on, no one knew what the disease was, kind of passed it off as like you mentioned, hereditary, or that's just how it is. But then this reason. Right. So when the doctor, the last one, did they then ask you to get a DNA test? How did they get that official diagnosis for you?
So I had done the nerve test. I don't recall off the top of my head what it's called, the MGD or the EGD or whatever it is. And the doctor basically at that time said, you have muscular dystrophy.
Right then.
He said, and you have carpal tunnel. And then he walked out of the room, and I was like, I'm like, is there a hidden camera? Can
I leave? Yeah.
Again, I called my sister as soon as I got to the car, and I'm like, I obviously broke down in tears. I'm like, told her what the doctor had said, and yeah, then it was just a lot of Googling and
Dr.
searching,
Google. Yeah. And then
doing all the stuff you shouldn't do, the WebMDs, you know.
I think I did the same thing. There is a lot of parallels. Maybe we had the same neurologist that did the nerve test, because he did something similar to, where he did the nerve test and he's like, you got some things that aren't really triggering here, and my shirt's off and I'm kind of feeling vulnerable anyway, because I'm not really proud of the physique that this stupid disease was giving me anyway. And I've already had 4 or 3 doctors prior tell me, you're not supposed to look like this. Your winging is supposed to be like this and this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've always been like this. There was only one doctor, and I've said this before in past episodes, that was a profound statement for me. Was, he had me just look at myself from a profile in a mirror and say, when you see yourself, do you see something wrong, or do you see yourself? And I said, no, I just see myself. And he's like, well, there's something wrong. That was like eye-opening to me. Like, what do you mean there's something wrong? I've always looked this way. Everybody's told me. Look how many doctors we've seen over the years, and all of a sudden, what? There's something wrong. And even for me, I think the other parallel is your moment where you leave the office, you're in your car, and I was like, slightly shell-shocked, I guess. A little like, wait a minute, like, what just happened? Like, I went in that building. And I came out of the building.
Right.
Nothing happened in there, and I can completely see my life totally different. So kind of like describe that moment. I know, tears, absolutely. I can relate. I think I was in a similar state of mind too. But for you, kind of, if you're...
identical to what you just said. You're looking around your car. You don't know where to drive to. You don't know where to go. You don't know who to call. Do you call your wife and explain something? And knowing my wife, who is going to have a million questions, where the doctor just walked out, I'm not going to have anything for her. So again, I go back to the one person that has a medical background per se, and just talked with her, because again, she's my sister. She grew up with the same dad that I had. Yeah. It really wasn't until I started researching it. And it was before that I finally had the test done, to determine that I had the FSH1, where I started taking a look at the symptoms. I started looking at what my dad had, and really it was FSH, and I think the other one was the myotonic. I could be saying it incorrect. That I thought I could have, but my dad's older age, when he would nap, I would always joke, like, is he still looking at us? Because his eyes never closed all the way. And then with the winging of the scapula, and obviously his physique with his biceps and his back, and I kind of was leaning towards the FSH, but it wasn't until I got fully tested that we were able to confirm it. So, but yeah, just talk about being scared. It's really the only way that I can describe it.
Yeah, it was. It felt like when I was told, and it sounds similar for you, like, you have muscular dystrophy, like it's not a big deal. It felt like a big deal. Like, this feels like a big deal. But yet you're reacting, doctor, like this is not a big deal.
Right.
It feels like a big deal. Yeah. And I kept thinking like you, like, this is odd. But then I quickly shifted. And I think I can't tell you how long I sat in that car. It must have been a while. I'm not saying all day, but it was a while, longer than most people should sit in a car at a doctor's office, like, move on with your day, but I found myself kind of staying still, not ready maybe to attack whatever is next in my day, carrying this information. And, but I started watching people, going in and then going out and so forth, and thinking to myself, how many other people, there's no way I'm alone in getting some type of similar to this. And I kind of shook myself free of like this selfish, woe is me, as quickly as possible, which is, if people that really know me, is like total opposite probably what they would think. They're like, Tim, Captain Negative, and the worst is like, well, that, man, there's other people that are dealing with this, and nothing really truly changed, right, Michael? I mean, we were still the same guy. Right. It didn't really matter. It's just the knowledge is what was different.
Correct. Yeah, and I would totally agree with that. Because it's more of a mind game almost than it is physical, right? And I think a lot of people out there just have the highs and the lows of, oh my God, what's going to happen? And, I always, when people ask me what I have and when I try to explain it, and they're like, oh, well, there's other people out there that have, and I say, yeah, but we're kind of like snowflakes, where everybody that has it they have a different aspect of it, you know, and everybody's unique. So you can't look at one person and say, oh, well, I'm going to be just like them. And my body's going to break down the same way that they are. Yeah. It just doesn't happen. So recently I just started having something happen with my left ankle, and I don't know, is it the tibialis anterior muscle that's along the shin bone?
You know more than me.
I just started looking it up because I've been noticing some weakness there, and you know, people have reached out on a couple of the Facebook groups to Living with FSHD, saying, you know, I had the same symptoms, but you know, it didn't really start affecting me for 5 years or 10 years. You just never know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw your post on that, and I kind of,
you did comment on that.
Yeah. I thought, I know this guy. Yeah. And you're right. Things kind of change, evolve. For me, mine is more the left. It's like the dumb drop foot thing. I'm walking with my wife, and I just like stop, and I'm like, do you hear that? She goes, hear what? I go, man, my left foot is making a lot of noise. You know, boom, hitting every stride. I'm like, doggone it. I knew right away, like, son of a gun. Yeah. Stupid drop foot's coming, you know, and it progressively, you know, I can kind of every once in a while catch that foot. Everybody knows what a struggle that is. Today, ironically, I'm trying to get a different AFO. They set me up with one. Like, oh, this thing sucks. I don't know. Everybody's probably shaking their head. Yes, it does suck. It's like it fixes one issue, and it feels like it's giving me 4 others. You know, it's like, so
I can imagine
going back to see if I can try to find a little better one.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, no doubt. So how did your family then react? At some point, obviously, you told your wife, I assume, and the family and so forth. Yeah. So what was that? Yep. What was that moment like? What was that conversation like?
I mean, it was difficult. I mean, I think there was a lot of like aha moments, even for my kids. My daughter, who's 22, was a gymnast. There was a few things that she struggled on, even though she always had bigger muscles than I did. You could always tell that the back muscles struggled when, especially when she was on the uneven bars. I think it's 13 years she was in gymnastics. I think it's called a kip that she would struggle with. Okay. Again, it's just not having that strength in your back to get your body up and around the bar. And, you know, it's like all of a sudden that clicks, and, you know, you start looking at your kids' scapulas when their shirts are off. And, you know, but they've been extremely supportive. They help me out whatever way they can. You know, they could probably cut the grass a little bit more, shovel a little bit more, but I also don't want to lose those things. So when they offer to do it, I a lot of times kind of selfishly say, no, I'll do it, because I want to do it until I can't anymore. And I want to try to use these muscles until I can't anymore. So, you know, they try to be nice, and
but
my wife says I'm being stubborn. You know?
Yeah. Wow. Do you guys live in the same house?
Yeah. No other guys probably heard that before. But, but no, they've been very supportive. And, you know, there's those emotional days where, you know, I struggle to get the top on my Jeep, you know, and I can't do it. And 4 times and I just can't do it. And I come in the house and again, almost in tears, that I just feel like, you know, like a loser. Like,
right. It's taking one more
like your
thing.
Self-worth is at 50.
Yeah.
All because you can't do something that you used to do. And that's the one mindset I think that people need to, you know, they just need to know that we are who we are. Like you said, it is who we are. And when you look in a mirror, it's just, we see us. That us is changing, but, you know, we can only do what we can. You know, my dad always used to quote the Serenity Prayer. My daughter and I both have tattoos.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Accept the things you cannot change.
Yeah. But isn't that acceptance? Is that tough in those moments, like you're describing with the Jeep, right? You're in that moment, you're trying to accept the fact that this is something you used to do. Now you can't.
Well, and now with the issue, I have a stick shift. So now the issues that I'm starting to have with my left foot, you know, there's now that thought of, do I have to get rid of it? Do I have to
just get an automatic?
They're not as much fun to drive.
They're not.
You know, but then I sit and I think of the people that struggle to get out of bed, the people that are in wheelchairs, the people, and then I'm like, I still try to golf. I still try to bowl, you know, with my kids. I try to shoot pool. I was shooting the other night. I got a couple of games in, then I couldn't hold the stick up anymore. And I had to quit. Yeah. You know, so I'm trying to do as much as I can until I can't anymore. And that's about all we can do.
That is truth, profound, simply stated, but it hits it right on the core, Michael. Exactly it. Where you want to do as much as you possibly can until you can't. So yeah, household chores. I'm on the same path. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Like, I hate plumbing, not because I totally dislike home care stuff, which I kind of do. I don't like home repair stuff, but I'll try to do it. But the fact that I could use, you can visualize, right, reaching under that sink to kind of deal with some type of drain work. Oh my gosh. I'm like, there was a time where I was trying to do it and I literally I had to think about it for like 15 minutes. How am I going to navigate holding the weight of my own arms up so I can fiddle down there?
Right.
I bought little propped things, put my elbows on so I could do it. And my wife's like, you're nuts. Just let me do it. I'm like, let me do this. There'll be some day that I can't at all. And then you can take over. Until that day, maybe let me make the adaptions and then I'll go from there. Or you kind of talked about, baseball a little bit, throwing a little bit. And I know that you did coach baseball. We talked about this and now that your kids are in high school, maybe that part's just done because, they're aging over, they're aging out and getting to a different level of baseball here. But you did coach your son, and that's how we met, was more through the baseball world. So how was that journey being a baseball coach? That's something I think you and I can definitely speak upon, but I've never had the opportunity to talk to somebody else that was a baseball coach that had FSHD.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Since both my boys are 17 and 14, since they got started into T-ball at our local Little League in South Milwaukee, I was a part of their teams. So I don't know a darn thing. I was a cheerleading coach. I mean, I've learned a lot from a lot of very intelligent coaches. Had the privilege of coaching with a lot of really great guys. And so, I mean, I've learned a lot as I go, and I'm as the bookkeeper. It was actually, I kind of have to tell this story. I was writing down your roster, your lineup in our book when we played against each other, looking down when I heard my name, is Michael Osborne here. And I looked up and you said who you were. And it took me a second to register. And, again, I'm going to sound like a baby because the amount of emotion for you being the first person that I've ever met, number one, with muscular dystrophy, and number two with FSH. I mean, it was like meeting Santa. It's never, well, 'tis the season. But it was like, I never ever thought I was going to meet someone, let alone in person, let alone on the same baseball field that I was coaching. And, and I don't even know if you remember this, but when I ran up the dugout and shook your hand and, it said, great to meet you. And I think one of the first things I said is, man, this is a lonely disease.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because you just, you can be on Facebook groups or you can be on other groups. And again, I know there's a lot of FSHD society, people get together, and obviously during COVID, I got diagnosed about 4 months before COVID hit. So, when you're kind of at home and don't have a lot of people to actually interact with in person, and then you're going through this, it can be tough. So when I met you, now I know I'm getting off topic a little bit, which my wife would be like, oh, it's you telling a story. But it was it's kind of life changing, for me. But being a baseball coach was fantastic.
but that is the segue. You knew the segue I was going to. Yeah, building into you coaching baseball and then us met, and I think I should have maybe tried to grab you earlier before pregame, because I don't think I realized too how much it was affecting me. And then I had to try to coach third base. I think I was totally spaced out the first two players. I'm sure I said something dumb, like most third base coaches do. Hit the ball hard. Yeah, no doubt. Obvious.
Don't swing and miss.
Yeah, don't swing and miss. Just telling your pitcher throw strikes. Well, yeah. So it was because, like I mentioned earlier, when I was alluding, to this part of our interview, when my friend Jeff said, in a text, hey, I think this guy has what you have. Like, what? And then preparing myself driving there to the game, like knowing full well, like I want to meet this person. I want to point out that we have a connection through this disease. But trying to make the day feel normal, routine. I'm always about, the same for my ball players. So I don't want to not be where I normally would be and make them wonder what's going on with coach and this and this. So I never really put it way out in front. Like one year, it was definitely on our front page a little bit. We actually had a film crew follow us for a game because they wanted to see how I did things at a PBS.
Oh, really?
It was a PBS Milwaukee program. One of the dads is a director for, or video editor, I should say, for 1036, I think is the name of the program. And they followed me for a game from my house all the way to the ball field and so forth. So that's probably the only time it was like on the front page of our, baseball season. Other than that, I kind of always like pass it off. So I didn't really want it to be on the front page. At the same time, it's tough because I knew to some degree that this was going to be an interesting moment. However, I didn't know that I was the first person that you met with it. I think that was something I was a little bit, to be honest with you, kind of stupid of me, because I'm like, wait a minute, this might be more difficult for Michael Osborne than it might be for me when it's all said and done. So that's not the effect I was looking for to make you, feel that direction, more like a connection. Like,
oh, trust me, I felt connected. I mean, and you had sunglasses on and a baseball hat, and every time I've seen podcasts, obviously you've been in your glasses and your headphones. So,
right.
You said the name, it took me a second, but then I got halfway through your name in my head and I went, oh my God, this is someone like me. And again, it just, I mean, I wasn't expecting it. It caught me. And after you walked over to third base and I was saying to my other three coaches in the dugout who are like, family. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, you don't understand who I just met. Yeah. I'm like, and they of course are like, okay, it's the third base guy that we've seen, once or twice before earlier in the season.
Right. He's a total jackass.
What's your problem?
Right. Like, how is that emotional? Right. Yeah. But you don't get it unless you get it. And I think it's similar if if someone else has a similar ailment as any other, because I believe everybody's got a something or multiple somethings. And if there's that like connection that you get because they get it, they understand the struggle. I mean, if I would have asked you, hey man, do you put your coffee mugs on the top shelf in your cabinet? You'd be like, dude, are you crazy? I can't do that. We would laugh and haha and be like, what are they talking about? What are they doing? It's just one of those inside, things that you can say. And it was shocking that you didn't meet someone prior. But then when I learned that you didn't, it took me right back to the first time I did. I walked into a chapter meeting in Chicago. Dave Lucas was the director of the chapter at that time. I don't know, can't remember how I connected with him. I know I was doing the show. I think I was starting to do the podcast at that point a little bit, and I had to, physically see people. I had to be around it. And when I did, I was not expecting the feelings that came with it. It completely threw me off. Did not expect it. I thought, well, this will just be a conference and we'll talk about stuff. But when you physically start seeing people, I mean, I could probably point people out in a crowd and say, ooh, there's something about that person that looks really similar to how I look, or the people that have this disease. And when I saw a whole room at like a Starbucks, this little conference room of about, 6 people, 8 people, and outside of the caregivers, people had the same, body shape or the same, way they arms and things moved. I was like, oh my God, this is eerie. And then the conversation starts with, adapting to things and, growing the group and all this kind of stuff. And it was wild. I remember being one of the last people to leave, because I just needed more information. I needed more connection. I needed to leave with more than what I came with. And that goal was met, and that chapter still lives on. And then I've been to like a leadership volunteer conference in Chicago, and they're crazy. They put it in like January, Michael. I mean, really? But yeah. So
what other month would you have it?
Yeah, right. Let's come to Chicago in one of the and that year I think it was the polar vortex. Remember that? And I went during that time, and that was definitely profound as well. And seeing people from different parts of the country. And then, so forth, I've met a little bit, but every time it's the same kind of feeling, that same kind of connection. So I hope you get that again. I hope that you can find more people to meet. But I mean, I did try to start like a Wisconsin chapter, but Wisconsin is so broad. Like it's like little pockets of cities, and if I don't get the right people to connect, it just didn't grow.
Kind of fizzles
like I wanted. Yeah. I think it still exists on the map of FSHD Society and says that there's a chapter, so it floats there. So maybe that's something we can work on later in our life, but it is there. And it was just cool for me to see someone so close to home in the same world as kids coaching baseball. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is just unbelievable, and yeah, I think when I went back to the dugout and then talked to the coaches, Jeff knew, and he was looking at me like, how was that? Oh, that was wild. Oh, that was wild. That was wild. I just kept saying, I just don't know how to describe it to him, even though I knew he kind of understood him. I've known Jeff since I was 9. So it's like, he kind of, got it to some degree, the best he could. And then, the game went on. But like at the end of the game, are you giving handshakes and high fives to the kids and the other coaches? And you and I hugged.
Yep.
And I think probably you were like, do those guys know each other?
They just met.
Yeah, they just met. It's like, I'm sorry, dude. It's like, it has to happen, So yeah, it was.
Well, and now we've been fortunate enough to join your Focus.
Yes.
Club. So now we get the chance to see each other more often.
Absolutely. And that's the part I'm really looking forward to. Of course, I love baseball. It's a great distraction. Yeah. Seeing you and your family more at the, the best I can. I know we're kind of
correct
to some degree, but it is cool. There's no question to have us in the same organization like that, and people have asked me a little bit because we're a new organization, why do you have the logo you have? Why do you have the colors you have? I'm like, orange is for FSHD. So when I made the logo, it has to be orange. And then the guy's like, okay, I could just put orange in it. I don't care about the other colors. And hence they made the logo and so forth. So for me, there's a meaning for that. It has it
Absolutely.
in the, so that's a special place for me and like a reminder of like why I'm doing this and so forth. So yeah, it's a total honor to have you and your family involved in the organization. That was interesting how that all fell together. And we were super excited as a ownership of Focus Baseball. We were trying to grow it. And all of a sudden we have 5 families ish. Something came from the South Milwaukee Rockets. Like, hey, we need somewhere to go. I'm like, get over here.
Yeah.
Like we need you too. And it was, I think, a perfect combination. In fact, I just saw Coach DeFord last Sunday, and looks like he's doing great. So yeah.
Yes, I saw him on Saturday. So
did you? Oh, good. So since now we've kind of went full circle, definitely in the direction I wanted to go to of why I want to invite you here because of that moment, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to those first times that they met someone. Last question I have for you is more based on, I guess, and you sprinkled it a little bit within and out of what you've been talking about, but what would be like the advice piece that you would give to somebody recently diagnosed? It wasn't that long ago for you.
Right.
If they're sitting in their car,
Yeah.
it's like, what do you tell them? What's your first steps? What's the path forward? What's your advice?
Yeah, I guess I would say, don't let your mind jump off a cliff. Find the best support that you have available to you. They won't understand exactly what it is that you're going through. And depending on your progression, they'll never really understand, but don't shut them out. I would say is probably don't assume that because they don't know exactly what you're going through that they can't be helpful. And just try to do as much research as you can. I didn't have the best meeting with my neurologist because he basically said the same things I had read up on. So to me, it was a waste of a day leaving the office.
Yeah.
Any more than I had already read. Get involved with the groups on social media. Again, being able to see what other people are going through can kind of help mitigate your feelings. And that, there are people out there that are struggling more than you are. And I think that really puts it in perspective for me is I can go down a rabbit hole on a bad day, on a bad night, if something happens. But then I know that, I can walk to work, and, that really humbles you to a point to say, I really don't, there are people out there that have it worse than I do. So just, take whatever support you can find, reach out, don't hide in your home. And we'll get through it together.
Nice. That's great advice. I appreciate that. I'll take that advice myself too and carry that with me. But I'm glad that we connected then. I'm glad we can continue to do so as we go forward. And thanks, Michael, for being here, spending some time with us, inspiring our community. Appreciate you.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you. That is Michael Osborne. He is South Milwaukee guy. Yeah, right in my neck of the woods. Love it. So as we kind of wrap up the episode here, it has been amazing to see great groups joining and so forth. And Michael has been, one of those people that I think has found support in the groups out there, social media, as he mentioned, and I really implore that you do so. Within that, then of course, there's always a segue of, visit FSHDsociety.org. A lot of things going on in the community. That community has built up so much over the years that I've been involved, from the podcast to where we are now. It is really something I implore you to do more and more. I'll always have said that there is, the emotional side of FSHD, there's the physical side. Groups can help in both because of the support that is out there, even getting fit with FSHD and so forth. Michael Osborne put out there, hey, I'm experiencing this in my left ankle in certain groups. He got a ton of responses, information. I open up to my email box all the time to you guys in the community. We're going to record another episode that has another FSHD that reached out via email, sharing her story, and I want to talk with her and have her story shared with you, growing our community even more. So you can definitely send me those emails. I would love it. I would be totally honored if you did that at fshdradio@fshtsociety.org. And as we go forward into 2024, bringing you more episodes, I really want to concentrate on that. I mean, the science is the science. There's nothing I can do about that. And I have no problem bringing you, late breaking news. And you can find that faster than I can bring it to you through social media. If you follow FSHD Society or FSHD Global, Friends of FSHD and so forth, they're all going to share those things with you. But what I find that some don't is really about the community and the people on a regular basis. And that's really where I'm trying to direct the purpose and path of this show, of this program. I'm about the people. I'm about the community. Bringing Michael Osborne on is one of the people in our community. I think he had a lot to share, and I really appreciate the fact that he shared so much. And I can't express that feeling enough. When we first met each other, and I'm sure some of you can relate for sure and tap into that feeling. What did that mean? I did take for granted that I met someone else prior. I guess I just assumed he did, and he didn't. And how more meaningful than that moment was because of that reason. It can be a little overcoming. And if you have had that experience, reach back in your mind of what that meant to you. If you can do that for somebody else that's never met anybody with this disease, what an honor that is. And that's how I felt later when I realized that Michael didn't meet somebody with this disease prior. Outside, obviously, his father growing up around it, but it's a little different, someone outside of that family circle. So if you have that opportunity to do so, do so. Grow the outreach and get people out of their homes, as Michael said. Don't just stay in there. Do something you can do about it. Those are my takeaways from today's interview. Is get connected. Be that person that's the first person for somebody else that they can meet, that you can share with, that you can grow the community. As always, yeah. So thank you all for joining again today. It's been a lot of fun episode for me. Selfishly, I love it. I love talking with people of our community, but in particular, I was really looking forward to getting this interview on the books and talking with Michael on this scale and sharing that with you. I was really excited for it, so I'm glad we could bring it to you. Once again, follow all our episodes and find them all on Spotify and other platforms you find your podcast. This will continue to be available for you there. Send me your emails if you got show ideas, you want to be a guest on the show, especially on these community style episodes. Love to hear your story and share it with the rest of those that listen and watch, and always appreciate and am thankful for our community. So send me those emails at fshdраdio@fshtsociety.org. Take care until we chat again. You've been listening and watching the FSHD Society Radio Show.